that is the connecting piece. But
But I've seen you post about that a lot, though, about, like, what were you doing before all this came about? Like, everybody is scheming. Yeah, everybody.
You are learning our worth, and y'all are scared. So scared that the last thing y'all could do is put in law.
On mute, but I was holding still because my face always tells a whole story, so I was trying to act like I was frozen, but I'm really not. It's okay. So yes.
It's been months, and I haven't been gaining anything from my business. Everything is so slow. I even took coaching classes, read different books, and nothing is happening. The question is, what do I do? Call this number.
Hello? It's handled. Run over and check out our newest release, The Ultimate Business Planner by Besties in Business. Create content using our content calendar, write down aspirations, take inspiration from our featured chapters, and so much more. Remember, opportunities don't happen. You have to create them. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Besties Building Brand Podcast. I'm your host, Alter Ego. Our co-host Crystal may be joining us later. I know we haven't been on in a while, but we're getting back in the swing of things, bringing you some motivation and some dope individuals who are out here killing the game. So today our special guest is Nicole Kenney. She is a proud West Philadelphia native. She has committed to her academic and professional career, which she's had over a span of 15 years, by leading and innovating at the intersection of policy, communications, and programs around racial, gender, and economic equity. Her vision is to leverage her diverse professional background and community experience to improve the social and economic outcomes of Black women and girls, women of color, and underrepresented communities. So let's welcome Nicole to the show. Hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad to have you on the show. I just want people to hear about what you're doing out here in the community. Our show is about, giving motivation to other business owners, networking, and just the benefits of it, which brought us together by networking at the Black Women Talk Tech Conference. So before we get started, I do like to ask a couple of quirky questions just to break the ice. So I'll ask the questions and you just answer them as fast as you can. It'll be this or that. Okay?
Yep.
All right. So Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Day or night?
Day.
Dog or cat?
Definitely dog.
Okay. Fresh Prince or Martin? This is a very important question.
Fresh Prince.
Okay. We like Martin.
I figured as soon as you said this is a very important question, I was like, she's definitely Team Martin. But
most people say Martin, but the last couple of guests we have been saying Fresh Prince. I guess I don't know if it's a Philly thing. Maybe I need to represent my town a little bit more, but I don't know.
Where are you from?
Philly.
Oh.
And I never picked the Fresh Prince.
You know what? So I also too grew up like sheltered in a way. So I we weren't allowed to watch Martin growing up.
Oh, really?
No. So Fresh Prince was like the family show. I think it was like Monday nights at 8 p.m. So, like, I didn't grow up really on Martin, but I realized I need to watch it just because of the cultural references, especially in college. But it definitely, as a professional Black woman, I feel like Martin is just something that has to be in your vocabulary. So to talk about.
You definitely need to binge watch it so you can laugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I usually let our guests introduce themselves, but your bio was so awesome. I was like, I just have to read some of it. So you tell us about yourself in your own words and what you have going on, and then we'll kind of start from the beginning.
Okay, sure. So, hey y'all, my name's Nicole. I'm proud West Philly native. Let's see, what do I do? So basically, my life work is really to advance racial, gender, and economic equity. And what does that mean? It means that I'm super passionate about creating and improving outcomes for Black women and girls, especially because we talk about at the intersection of race and gender, but also communities of color and other underrepresented groups. And that's looked very different throughout my professional career. I started off as a buyer for Ross when I graduated from college. So I worked in the fashion district, and I was one of those people, like, if you ever wondered who's responsible for putting those items in the stores, that was me. That was my first job out of undergrad, and only because I really loved clothes. But it didn't last there long because the fashion industry just turned out not to be necessarily for me. But it really did expose me to just the way Black folks are perceived in the fashion community, and particularly like the lack of diversity that's in the fashion community. There's also a lot of great things that I learned while there. But after that, I worked in Philly at a nonprofit that was really about branding Philly as a place to live, work, and play. At this time, people might know Philly as a fun place, but back in 2006, it was not. Folks were not hyped to be here. They wanted to be in New York or in DC. So Philly really was doing a lot of work to kind of brand Philly as a fun place. So I was in charge of doing a lot of like community events, particularly for young professionals. So that's what really got me into creating programs and things like that. And a lot of my work was around creatives and entrepreneurs. And again, this is at a time when Philly wasn't necessarily had the brand that it has now, which is like this real awesome place for creativity. But my passion too has always been around improving the social and economic outcomes in our communities and Black communities. So I went on to get my master's degree from Hopkins in Baltimore, and then worked with the NAACP for about 5 years. So started as an intern in grad school, rose the ranks. There, my background was really in economic policy. So really learning about the different barriers and opportunities for Black folks when it comes to creating generational wealth. And all the limitations to that. And then I grew on my work doing more communications work. So really talking about the issues that impact Black and Brown communities, and with the NAACP doing that on a national and international scale. And then I came back home in 2016. Social justice work is in my blood, but I needed a break. So I came home back to Philly. And there I really decided the really cool thing about working in the Black communities is that you're able to see even more of the nuances and different challenges that we all face. And that's where I really began to see that Black women and Black girls face some really unique needs that oftentimes are not amplified, or they may be at the margins. And so when I started my own company, I decided to really place Black women and Black girls at the forefront of my work. So every project that I was doing, whether it was a communications project, whether it was a event, it had to some way touch Black women and Black girls. And I've been doing that for over, I would say about 3 or 4 years. It started, I also did a documentary. You'll probably ask me this about my entree into entrepreneurship. What happened was when I came home, and I was a very typical stressed out millennial, trying to figure out which way was up, rising the career ladder, but, just trying to find some sort of balance. And what I did is I created this documentary about my just own lived experience, trying to figure this out with the community of my aunties, or also what I call women in my community who give me wisdom and advice. And with that documentary, which was just a project, it was just a class that I took at a place called Scribe. The company started to hire me to show my documentary. So that's how I became an entrepreneur. It was not on purpose. I was people I had no problem collecting the paycheck. I was but I've always been very sensitive and responsive to the needs of my community. And as a creator and an innovator, always looking for new opportunities to connect. So when
let's talk about, hey, Auntie, for a minute. So basically everything that you're saying seems like it just puts you in position for that program. So let's talk about that, because you won something, you did something cool with that. So let's hear about, that accomplishment.
Yeah, so Hey Auntie is like my latest iteration of my work. So it is a wellness platform to connect intergenerational Black women around mentorship, professional and life development, and community. And it was the grand prize winner of the Well City Challenge, which was a challenge that was kicked off at the end of last year. And had lasted for about over 7 months. So over 100 ideas were submitted. And the challenge was really a call for innovative solutions to address millennial health. And what I saw, because of the work and because of my focus, is that Black women are overburdened and under-resourced. And so I wanted to think about what ways can I combine all of the information I have been gaining over my career and over my personal life, and making that accessible to more Black women, including especially Black millennial women. And Hey Auntie was how can I really leverage the latest technology to connect women to women who are more seasoned, to kind of provide wisdom. So think of it, I like to say, as a wisdom sharing platform or a life on life coaching for your mind, body, and spirit. And so I just was the grand prize winner. So I won $60,000 of investment money to build this platform out. So I'm super excited about it. Looking forward to launching the official platform in the spring of 2022. And over the next several months, I'm trying to figure out where we're at. The next several months, we'll start to kind of roll out more just content and conversations intergenerationally around topics that are really important to Black women, with the goal of improving our health outcomes. So
you said that, aunties are like the women in your life that gave you wisdom. How was it for you growing up? You grew up in West Philly. Did you have a lot of women around you to support you? Or, is it something that you lack, which is like why you decided to put together a program to, bridge that gap?
No, so it was something I had growing up, and it's really interesting, but I've also know what it's like not to have it. So what I mean by that is I'm from West Philly, but I moved to New Jersey in 6th grade. So from 6th to 11th grade, I was in Southern New Jersey, and we were one of the few Black families in my neighborhood. And I had a lot of Black girls and Black professional women had a very traumatic experience, for lack of a better word, being in an environment where people are not investing in you or they're not speaking life into you, whether it's just adults, but also even in your peer group. It was very hard for me to find just other girls, Black girls, but just other girls like me who had similar life goals. The unique thing is when I moved back to Philadelphia, I enrolled in a high school called Hallahan High School for Girls. It was the first time I was in a community with girls like me, who are Black girls, brown girls, white girls, Asian girls, just all girls who were just super supportive. And also, too, it created more opportunity for me to be around more women, older women as well, who were really invested in me. So I personally have really benefited from having aunties in my life and having strong sisterhood. And especially too, I come from sisters. I'm the oldest of 4, and they're my best friends as well. So I've always grown up in communities of women, being supported by women and being supportive of women. And I give that a lot of credit, God first, but then that a lot of credit for my success. And so when I'm talking to other women, a lot of times they will comment that they have trouble finding that type of community, or I've heard some women say I might be their first friend, things like that, and for me, that's always a bit shocking because that's my normal, is to roll with tribes. So thinking about, okay, how can I create a platform and a system to connect more women to a celebratory sisterhood that you can grow and thrive with, in addition to how can we create opportunities for mentorship, not just career, because I also hear from a lot of women, they need a lot of life mentorship, and it be a very safe and supportive space. So it's something I had, and it's something I want to amplify and make available to more women.
Are you facing any challenges trying to launch this platform and this program, or has everybody been receptive to your mission and your vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think challenges, absolutely. I mean, from the iteration, there's always challenges. But I would say for the most part, people are receptive, but there's also a lot of questions, right? Like, how is this going to work? How are you going to, get the aunties? How, which I think are fair questions, right? And it's also too why for me, I'm a very strategic thinker. I'm very thoughtful. I'm very research centered. So these are questions that I just spend a lot of time thinking about, as well as talking to other people about. So what are the barriers? You know what I mean? And for me, that's how I think. So what are the barriers to maybe you thinking this idea could be feasible, and how can we work through it? So the challenges are absolutely, they're part of the process.
Yeah.
But I would say, especially my life, and I was reflecting on this today, I grow in the challenges. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. I'll be honest, I was crying this morning. It's not fun. But when I think back over my life, I wouldn't be where I am without the challenges. So it's one of those things, that those tensions that I'm just learning to live with. And that's why I think it's even more important that you have a supportive community around you.
So I know you have the aunties around you, but did you have like an official mentor or someone, like when you decided, hey, I want to put this program together, I want to, bridge that gap, I want to, do this, for real and make it a business? Did you have a mentor, or was it just based off of you, your research, and what you have been doing already?
I did have a mentor. So, and I will say this is what was super helpful in a couple of ways. Officially, the type of mentorship that I needed. So one of the things that I did when I was working on Hey Auntie, and it's still very much in the new stage, is I built an advisory committee, right? I'm a woman of faith, so I believe that safety comes in a multitude of counsel. So I don't move without advisory people. I just don't. I'm very clear that I cannot see 360. I'm very clear that I don't know everything. And so the first thing that I always do is to reach out and see, okay, who else can I get to help me? Now, I will say that's something I've had to grow into, especially as an entrepreneur, because I think when you start as an entrepreneur, you think it's just you. But when it comes to growing, and I remember hearing entrepreneurs say this, if you're not involving more people, you can't grow. It's impossible, because you're only one person. You can only do 24 hours of work. That's assuming you're working 24 hours, which you're hopefully not. But if you're looking to grow, that means you're going to need multitude of people. So, but I will, to your particular point, why I'm so excited and happy for the Well City Challenge, I knew I needed a mentor specifically in the technology space. And that is what they gave me in the very first round in the incubator. And that particular mentor, his name is Hayward West, and he's from Deloitte. He was, offered to stay with me throughout the entire process. So I had these informal mentors, and then being in community with the Well City Challenge, they have been connecting me with other people who have served as mentors. And then there's other people in my life who I know who are experts, whether it's in women's health, behavioral health. I reached out to a woman I went to college with who supported me in UX design. So the short answer is I would say yes. I've been blessed to have mentors, and I just recognize that I can't move without that wise counsel.
Okay, so a lot of our the members of our group, they're entrepreneurs. They have projects that they want to do, things that they want to get up off the ground. Do you have any productivity hacks? Or I know sometimes they have problems with being consistent. Do you have any tips or tricks for them to get their business off the ground, be consistent, and find things like the contests and things to generate income and funds for their business?
Yeah, so in terms of productivity, what I will say is, the first thing, my friends laugh at me about this, but there's I'm a big reader and I'm a big resource sharer. So I can't remember her name, but she has a book. I think her name is Valerie Burton, and she has a time budget. And one of the first things that I would suggest that every entrepreneur does is a time budget. And you need to know exactly where all your time is going. And I say that because before I started doing a time budget, I became very tight with my financial budget. And what I recognize is that whoever you are personally is who you are professionally. So if you have a hard time budgeting in your personal life, you're going to have a hard time because you're the same person. You just showing up in a different capacity. And so I really became really good managing my financial budget. So then I took it to my time budget. So if you actually do a time budget, like for me, when I do a time budget, I really only have like 3 hours of free time in a day, for real, for real. And so once I know how much free time I have in a day, then you become really more discriminatory about how you spend it. So for instance, you asked me, do I watch Hulu and Netflix? During the week, I don't watch anything because that is an hour that I could be spending on something else. So for instance, I know any kind of like fun content, that's for the weekend. Another thing we were talking about, I'm trying to get back up at 5 a.m. When I'm reading about successful people, everyone says life starts at 5. If you're waking up around 7 or 8, there's already the hustle and bustle. And it's very hard for you to kind of even think because you're probably working on other things at that point. So being up at 5 a.m., I think is super amazing because the whole world is sleep. And I learned this in grad school. And I also feel like the time is longer. So you actually get a lot more time to get things done when you wake up early. And the last thing I would say in terms of productivity, and people who know me know, I am very selfish when it comes to my sleep. So I have to have 8 hours of sleep every night. So folks know, do not text me or call me after 9 p.m. and before 9 a.m. That is how I protect my space. And that's what helps me be productive. And the last thing I would say is exercise is critical for me. Because, I had a colleague who always said your health is your wealth. So the first thing I do is pray. The second thing I do is work out to make sure that I'm investing in myself so that I can be performing at my optimal level throughout the rest of the day. So those are some of the hacks that I'm implementing. Can always do better. But
that sounds like a good start. I know I hear that too, that you need to get up at 5 a.m. because getting up at 8, 9 o'clock, you're already behind the 8 ball. People are already getting stuff done, making calls and so on and so forth. So like I said, I want to try to get back on track, but these little ones drive me nuts.
It's hard. Issa Rae, I don't think I can do this. Well, I'm not gonna say can't because Michelle Obama was up at 4 too. But Issa says she's up at 4. And I can understand that because it's just like there's just so much you can get done between 4 and 7 a.m. Like,
and the world is quiet. It's not, you can concentrate, you can focus. Mm-hmm. So I was going to ask you so I know you won the money from that contest, but let's say you won $10 million tomorrow. What would you do with it? What would you spend it on?
Are you saying Nicole won $10 million professionally or Nicole just won $10 million?
You just won $10 million.
Oh, wow. If I went, that's a wonderful question. Well, the first thing I would do is tithe. So I would give it back, to my church. The next thing I would do is definitely save. Make sure all my debts are paid off. That's the second thing I would do. Hashtag student loan debt, because that's really the debt I'm talking about. The next thing I would do is definitely save. And then after that, I would probably make sure that Hey Auntie is where I want it to be, because it is a project that is going to require upwards of probably $500,000 at least to get it to where I want it to be. Of course, then I would give money to my family and to my friends. I'm super philanthropic, so I would also probably make donations to other I try to be like, what's her name? The woman from Amazon, Mackenzie, who's just out here giving everybody billions. I would probably, be given. But that's what I would do. I will say one of the things that I have learned is how to do more with less. Mm-hmm. And so and then I would travel, but I'm realizing I don't need a lot. So I would just use what I need in order for the projects that I have, that I feel like I've been entrusted to work on, that they are in a good place, that they're flourishing, and that, the people that I care about are taken care of. And then I would travel, and I would probably make a lot of donations.
Well, I know Hey Auntie is what you're working on now. But what are you doing besides that? Like, what does your business consist of? And what's life beyond Hey Auntie? Like, what's the next 5 to 10 years look like for Nicole and your business?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Hey Auntie is its own separate venture. So you have my company, it starts with me, and we're a social impact consultancy. And so my work really focuses on communications, doing now more diversity, inclusion, and equity assessments and trainings, and then also doing events and programming, and really doing that work to advance equity in one of those ways that we talked about. So racially, gender, or economic. I'm glad you asked me what would life look like for Nicole over the next couple of years, because that's something I've really been envisioning about. Something I'm really excited about right now is I've been working more with real estate developers around racial and economic equity. And that is important because my background, especially, home ownership is one of the main drivers of wealth. And it's one of the primary places where African Americans have been historically locked out of. And so I definitely do see me having more of a footprint in the real estate space, specifically around the commercial development side, and being more involved in working with leaders in that space about making real estate opportunities, not just residential, but also commercial, more equitable for Black folks. I also do see myself as well buying more property. One of my visions is to create homes that are also multi-generational, which means having homes where you might have an auntie and then you have someone younger so that they can look after each other. So that's a vision. Something else I'm deeply passionate about is film. So I told you I started with my documentary. I've already written a first screenplay. And so my vision, even when we were at the Black Women Talk Tech, I don't know if we met in the Netflix.
I think it was either Netflix or Roku, one of those rooms.
Yeah, so I was in Netflix because one of my dreams is for It Starts with Me to have its own production wing, and to actually have, for me, again, I'm a woman of faith, and so I would love to reimagine like Bible stories in contemporary times. And so for selling my screenplay to Netflix is a dream that I have as well at that time. And so that's really where I see myself growing, is really in the real estate space from a commercial side, and really working more with developers about creating more opportunities and access for Black folks, working on production, and things like that. And then just constantly innovating and thinking about new creative ways to tell stories. I'm also very much interested in augmented reality and virtual reality. So I could see myself doing that as well. But anything I'm doing to advance and amplify Black women and Black girls, that's my jam. But what I just mentioned is what I would like to see myself doing within the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay, cool. So we'll definitely be talking about that because a lot of those things sound like the same things that I'm working towards. But I wanted to ask you, what are some tools that you use? I know you mentioned the time budget, but what are some tools that you use for productivity in your business that, maybe, some of us could pick up to try to manage our time better, as far as working on our business, content, and things like that?
Yep. So the first thing I would say that I do, and again, this that I'm working on, I am not by any means perfect, but one of the things that I'm definitely trying to do is my phone being somewhere else during work hours, because I realize. So this is the first thing I would tell you. I've turned off every notification on my phone already. So like if I get a text, email, whatever, I wouldn't know it anyway. I would have to go check. But the second step of that is actually putting my phone in a separate room, so that I'm not even checking it. One of the things I love about Gmail now is that you can pause your inbox, so that, if you're someone like me, who like if your email comes, like you're like, oh, let me go look at it. That's a tool that I've definitely been using. Also, another tool that I will say, there's a book called Emotionally Healthy Leader that I highly recommend to entrepreneurs. And he talks about creating something called the rule of life. And the rule of life is another word for a trellis. A trellis is a thing that plants grow on so that they can grow up, right? And the rule of life is separated into 4 quadrants, and it can be whatever you want. But the quadrants that he has that I use are rest, work, relationships, and prayer. And the idea is that you put, so now it's 25% in each quadrant. Typically we think work is like 100%, but it's 25%. And the rule of life is that you put the different things in there that you need to be balanced in each area. And that, I will say, is probably the most, the tool that I use the most frequently when it comes to productivity, is not just, am I getting the work done, but then I'm going to look at rest. For instance, for me, I take the Sabbath every Sunday. What does that mean? No work. Everyone knows no work and don't call me. Like, I am completely unplugged because I need to rest and spend time with God. But also, what does rest mean? Rest means I have to be exercising at least 5 times a week. Or relationships. Have I checked in with a family member? Have I checked in with a friend? So that's something else. The book, I highly recommend, Emotionally Healthy Leader, because what it really talks about is that, I realize a lot of people make it seem as if, especially even being a startup founder, like you have to be a victim to this culture. Like I refuse to accept that I can't have control, or things can't be more balanced for me.
That you just have to be working all over the place, working all day, all night, no sleep. No,
I refuse. And I'm just like, and I know where that takes you. I did that all the way up to my mid-30s. So I know that. I always tell my friends, at some point you're going to realize there's no pot at the end of that rainbow. So it's like, once you get to the end of the rainbow, you see no pot. Like, you really do have an aha moment. So I'm really trying to be more intentional and thoughtful about integrating rest throughout my day, and doing less, because I think there's an obsession with busyness. Busyness does not mean productivity. It certainly doesn't mean impact. And for me, having a real long view on what I want to do, not just, and I would say that's the biggest thing I heard from Hey Auntie is, yes, Black women are concerned about their careers, but not just their careers. Their careers are not the only indicator that they're thriving emotionally. And I think because of just the culture and, frankly, racism and sexism, so much of our value is tethered to career because we always feel like we have to produce. But what I have found is that she's just as concerned about her family. She's just as concerned about her philanthropic endeavors. She's just as concerned about fulfilling the call, that God has over her life, if that's what she believes in. And so I'm hearing that as well. I'm hearing, yes, my career is important, but I don't want it to be the center of my universe. And I
mentioned that on the show before, that most Black women, they usually don't get praised or recognized unless they're doing something for somebody else. Just for being you, it's no big deal. Nobody cares. You have to be doing something epic or making a little bit of noise for people to care. But like you said, I care about my family. My family is important. The work that I do in the community is important. Those things validate me. Those things give me purpose as well. Not just my career, not just my business for the small business owners.
Yeah. And I honestly, there's a whole lot of racism and sexism tethered to that too, right? Like, let's be clear, like, you're not slick, and I think that's the thing for me calling out. I always remember, I will share this. I'll never forget, a friend of mine had said to me, and it was like a really casual convo, but it hit me to a core. And she was talking about this guy she was talking to. And he said he can always make his girlfriend do more if he makes her feel like she's not doing enough. And I feel like that is the story of Black women, right? Black women are literally doing the most.
Everything.
We are literally, like, I forget who I was talking to. I was like, you know what? Black women should have off for the rest of the year. My sister was like, for the rest of our life, really, we should have off. The
most, like you said, we are doing the absolute most, and I'm victim of it.
Yeah, no, I get, no, and it's a mind trap. It is racism and sexism at its core. If I push a little deeper, a lot of it has to do with identity and how Black women have been trained to see themselves, right? And so it's difficult to kind of detangle yourself from that, because that's all you've known. You become very, like for me, you become very addicted to extrinsic validation and praise, right? You become very addicted to titles. So for me, when I left my position, which was a well visible position, and I'm here with all these hoo-hoo people, and now I got to introduce myself and I have no title. That was horrible. Like, that was horrible. Like, I was like, people, stop asking me what I do. Like, it was, because at one point it was like when I was doing something and it wasn't even my company. It was like doing something for another company, but it had a name. You know, I had all this value, but you take that away from me and it's like, I'm nobody. And that's something I really had to sit with and unpack. But I think a lot of more Black women too are having that wake up call. You know what I mean? But I think too, that's why we can't just tell Black women like, don't care about this stuff, because that's how we've been raised. And there's layers to that. You know what I mean? But at least we're talking about it. So
I think that's important to keep talking about it. That's why I did this show. You know, because the more you talk about it, the more visibility it gets, the more people will hear. Some people probably have never even heard that coming from Black women saying, hey, like, my validation lies in things other than being a mom, for example. Like, some people, that's all they do, and they have to do. If they're not a mom, they don't know what to do when their kids move out and go to college. So thank you so much for this conversation. It was so good having you on the show. So if you want to catch up with her, get in touch with Nicole. Her website is itstartswithmeloc.com. Her email address is iswm@Nicole E Kenney with 2 N's.com. I'll make sure everybody has her information after the show. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a good evening.
Thank you.